Oh dear, The Last Jedi. So, although you probably left The Force Awakens feeling disillusioned and feeling a bit empty, at least I did, you probably were still excited about The Last Jedi, because I was a bit excited about it. I mean, there was no way it could have been as bad as The Force Awakens, I'm sure you thought. Disney is a massive company, I'm sure you thought. They surely know what they're doing. They surely have a plan in place. You probably thought, like me, The Last Jedi will explain all the things that were so weird about The Force Awakens. It'll still be great, right? It can't be so bad, right? Wrong. It was completely shit. It was so shit, it was depressing. I sometimes wonder, is there any point in going on? Maybe suicide is the only option left. Now, please don't get triggered by that last statement. Just trying out some dark humor here. But yeah, The Last Jedi was pure bullshit, and in this video, I'm going to break down why it was so bad. This is Blarney on the Telly. Please help me grow this channel by liking this video and subscribing. So The Last Jedi can be broken down and described with one phrase, which is subverting expectations. Subverting expectations seems to be the holy grail of writing these days, where the goal of a script writer is to completely throw off the viewer. Now, subverting expectations can work magically when done right. For example, when Luke discovered Darth Vader was his father, or when Luke was going to meet a powerful Jedi and eventually found out that that little green, annoying creature that had been bothering him was the all-powerful Jedi that he seeked. I mean, that is subverting expectations very, very well. But when subverting expectations is done badly, it just ruins the story and the natural joy of a movie. And my god, did The Last Jedi subvert expectations in the wrong way. The Last Jedi's idea of subverting expectations is the same as waking your kids up on Christmas morning, getting them all excited, bringing them down to the Christmas tree, and then when they are ready to open their presents, telling them there are no presents this year. Instead, you'll be teaching them some algebra. And that's kind of what it felt like watching The Last Jedi. You expected to open your Christmas presents, but instead you're treated to a maths lesson or something way worse than maths. I don't want to even insult maths that way. So the major early subversion of expectations in The Last Jedi comes in the form of Luke. At the end of The Force Awakens, we were treated to an epic scene where Rey hands Luke a lightsaber and they stare intently at each other. The Last Jedi begins with a disinterested Luke throwing away his lightsaber and telling Rey to leave. Now, I was okay with that initial subversion. It wasn't bad. It felt like they were setting something up. But then we just quickly learned that Luke is a pathetic, depressed, hopeless little man, kind of similar to Han Solo in the Force Awakens, who you can just imagine filling up some galactic bar with Guinness fart. Yes, the hero that we all grew up with has run off to an island to hide and wait for death. He acts pathetic, he looks pathetic, and you just know he smells of sperm and poo. But you are confused at why that smell of sperm and poo is coming from his beard. And in fairness, his beard is probably the most awesome thing in this movie. So not only is Luke pathetic, lost and miserable in this movie, but it also turns out that he has nothing to teach Rey. In one of the early phases of the movie, him and Rey get into a bit of a scuffle and Rey actually kicks his ass, which is just, I don't know, it's just crazy. Well, I can't even explain why that is so bad of a scene and such a bad setup for the rest of the movie. Then we find out that Luke was scared of Ben, who we have already established is basically just a teenager who stays in his room masturbating into his Darth Vader sock. So Luke was actually scared of that pathetic teenager, which obviously makes Luke even more pathetic. And he's just basically pathetic and useless for this whole movie. And then at the end, he force projects his image across the galaxy to save Rey and friends. And we get a touching moment between Leia and Luke, which when added with the touching scene between Luke and Yoda earlier in the movie, shows how great some scenes in this movie could have been. Anyway, Luke force projects himself, gives Rey and her friends time to escape, and then dies alone on a rock. I mean, for a moment, it was a kind of cool scene because it was pretty powerful that he could force project like that. He looked quite cool, and then they just kill him off, which was, you know, pathetic and depressing. One of the greatest characters in movie history dies alone on a rock and just disappears. And the whole idea that we are supposed to take from this is that Luke wasn't the hero that people thought he was, but he gave the galaxy the hero it needed one last time to inspire Rey or something. I don't know. I think that was what we were supposed to take from this. I really don't know. I don't even know if the writers really knew themselves. So yeah, they really subverted expectations on Luke, and it was a terrible choice. They took a character that most viewers have actually known since their childhood, and they completely changed what people expected. The viewer spent the last 30 years dreaming of what Luke has been doing, only to find out that he's been living alone, depressed on an island, sucking an alien's tit. What people want from a Star Wars movie is simple. Why try to subvert it all like this? What people want from a Star Wars movie is simple. Just escapism, a few lightsaber fights, a nice story, something that subverts expectations or surprises us a little bit, like Darth Vader being Luke's dad, but nothing too out there. But instead they just go and end up disappointing us like this. Anyway, so Luke is dead. Let's forget about him. Fuck him. At least we still have the big bad Snoke, right? Wrong. So Snoke dies pretty quick in this movie, and he wasn't very threatening up to that point anyway. Snoke is this super overpowered, cartoon-looking thingy, I think is the best way I can describe him, that if I'm honest, kind of looks like a shriveled testicle. That's the best description I can think of. He can basically move people around with the Force like they're chess pieces, and for the time he's on screen, he's just showing off constantly with the Force. This show-off Snoke just reflects a bigger issue with all movies these days. They've forgotten the art of mystery. Do you remember the Emperor from the original Star Wars trilogy? Remember how you never see him do anything for the whole trilogy except shoot lightning out of his fingers at the end. For the whole rest of the movie, he does nothing. He just walks around like an old man. But remember how threatening he was the whole time, even though you didn't see him do anything powerful. You just knew that he was powerful. You didn't need to see constant displays of power from him. You knew that this guy is the guy holding the leash of Vader, the guy that's leading an empire, and everyone bows down to him. You never needed to see him displaying his power. Now, Snoke is the opposite. He keeps doing fancy tricks with the Force, but he doesn't actually feel threatening. Then he gets killed by Ben, who we've already agreed is a pathetic wanker. And then Ben and Rey team up for a minute, and you think that maybe Rey will join Ben, and this could be a true chance to subvert our expectations. What if Rey turned evil? But no, that doesn't happen. Rey and Ben stay as bland as ever, Rey being the perfectly good person, while Ben is the forced feeling bad guy. And then we have this weird forced sexual tension that just doesn't work, and I don't even want to talk about that. Kylo Ren, for some reason, has his top off a lot. Again, I don't want to talk about that. But I think you're seeing points in this movie where they could have subverted our expectations in a really fun way, but they just subverted expectations in a really safe way. What if Rey had turned evil? Now that would be subverting expectations, and that would have got me interested. But the stuff of Luke being pathetic and dying off eventually, it just felt so safe. And it's just laughably bad, to be honest. And then we find out there's no mystery about who Rey's parents are. She was just some randomer, and of course they're going to change this in the next movie, but for now that's what they're going with. And then I think they realized they got bad fan reactions, so they, in the final movie, The Rise of Skywalker, they changed that altogether. But I guess the idea that they were going for was that we don't need these great legendary heroes like Luke, but sometimes the hero can just be some random person, which could have been a nice idea, but they didn't communicate that in any way that I think effectively got across to audiences and made us really understand that this was showing that a hero can be anyone. And then of course we move away from the main characters in this film, and this film introduces a whole trough of terrible new characters. There's the character called Admiral Amilyn Holdo. I think that's how you pronounce her name. This character has a whole arc throughout the movie where she is at odds with Poe, where Poe thinks Admiral Holdo has no plan to save them, and he keeps trying to do something to save everyone. It turns out in the end that Admiral Holdo did have a plan, and she ends up sacrificing herself. Fair enough, but why did she need to keep her plans secret from Poe for the whole movie? Clearly this character of Admiral Holdo was added to this movie to play the feminist trick of upstaging the cocky male. I'm all for having a strong female character, that's cool. I'm cool with them showing up the cocky male character, but the whole piece of this movie with Admiral Holdo and Poe is so terribly written that it just doesn't have any power, and it just feels like it's pandering. And it just really feels like the executives at Disney who are making this film said, look, we need something to get that feminist dollar because that's really making a lot of money right now. And that's why it's written, and it just didn't feel very genuine in any of these scenes.
Fuck Indiana Jones, put a ticket in it and make his name gay!
And then there are loads of other crap things about this movie. Admiral Akbar, one of the most iconic Star Wars characters that also has one of the most iconic Star Wars lines, which you obviously know, which is, "It's a trap." And Admiral Akbar just dies in the movie, and there isn't really much about it. He just dies in the background. To be honest, the first time I watched this movie, I didn't even know that Admiral Akbar had died. I was too busy watching Leia fly through space like Mary Poppins. So as I said, there's a whole slew of crappy side characters. Rose is a new side character that takes Finn off on a really pointless side quest. Then at a time when it looked like Finn was going to sacrifice himself and we're going to get the plot subverted in a good way that's quite emotional and interesting, what happens? Rose comes out from nowhere and saves Finn in a manner that completely defies space-time and physics. When I saw Finn was going to sacrifice himself, this was one of the few moments in the movie where I felt genuine surprise and emotion. But of course they ruined this part, and not only that, but then with no sexual tension or no lead up in the whole movie, Rose kisses Finn. So that was ridiculous. Benicio del Toro's character is crap, not even worth talking about. Captain Phasma is crap, not worth talking about. There's so much crap about this movie. And to be honest, I'm actually getting bored talking about it at this point. It is definitely the worst Star Wars movie, in my opinion, and I think you're crazy if it isn't in your opinion. I just left this one feeling empty. Our favourite hero had died in a really depressing way. The mysterious baddie ended up being crap and died. The only bad guy left was Kylo, masturbates into a Darth Vader sock, Ren, and Kylo Ren had already got whipped by Rey in The Force Awakens, so there didn't even feel like there was any stake. So yeah, The Last Jedi, don't bother watching it. And what about The Rise of Skywalker? Was it that bad? If you're even arse knowing at this point, click the video on screen to find out, and if I'm still alive, I'll talk to you then.